on, everybody? Welcome back to another amazing and exciting episode of the Viall Files Bachelorette Recap Edition. I'm your host, Nick, joined by Allie and Amanda. Ladies, how are you doing?
Good. I feel like it's been years since we've been here. It's been a week, but
5 days.
correct. I'm not sure why time is passing so slowly.
It's nice to know that you miss us so much. Like,
Nick walked down the hallway and I was like, "Oh my God, it's you."
I can only read that as like you just love being here.
Yeah, and you specifically.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
You make Mondays so much better.
We have a fantastic guest to help us break down this episode. The wonderful Allison Raskin. It returns.
Hello, thank you for having me back.
Author of Overthinking About You, an excellent relationship book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it. I'll soak it in.
How you been?
I've been good. I'm excited to talk about this week's episode.
Yeah, it was triggering.
It was a doozy.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot to discuss about that. Before we do, Allie, do we have?
We have a little bit of Bachelor tea. I guess a couple things. Some updates on our most recent Bachelor couple, Nate, Michelle. Nate has moved to Los Angeles.
All right.
So welcome, Nate. And apparently he's sharing a place with Rodney.
Okay.
So I feel like a lot of the guys of that season they're really like bros.
I've seen Rodney a few times. Maybe
Yeah.
I've never met Nate. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet
Yeah.
him.
It's so funny to me because I feel like on the show, they're always like, that sometimes there's like one person who's being really antagonistic who's like, I didn't come here to make friends. And it's like, but you kind of did.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the friends you make on the show turn out to be your lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And you maximum a person you date for
I think most people like the "I don't come to make friends" has
kind of died down there. We're like, yeah.
I think it's always a great sign when you can tell that the contestant is liked by the other people.
Yeah.
That when I see a front runner clearly has friends in the house, I'm like, ooh, I'm interested.
Yes
I like
and
this.
no, though. It can go both ways, though.
Tell me more.
Well, the house can be a bully.
Oh.
And depending on Andy's season, I had Markel and JJ, and I was kind of friends with Josh, but and I ended up becoming friends with Chris Soules. But it was a very bro-y house. It was a bunch of guys who liked to drink a lot of alcohol, and I didn't. And
Right.
if you weren't part of that group, you were kind of an outsider. So I'm a little hesitant to based off an edit off of that show to decide who I like versus I don't like versus who's the cool kid and who's an outsider.
No, yeah, that makes sense. I guess there's moments though when you've seen people be upset and then you see who consoles them in a way.
that
And
for
I
sure.
always like
Yeah.
those moments where you can be like, oh, this person genuinely cares about this other person.
Sure, yeah.
Or has
yeah.
empathy and that I always am I remember Hannah Brown, someone was upset and Hannah Brown came in and you could tell that they were relieved Hannah was there to help them through
Yeah,
it.
when you see someone show empathy, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that definitely is something that reads true, for sure.
But Nate is apparently going to get into modeling. So
I'm shocked.
he's still doing tech sales.
he
so modeling
probably
is
should. He's
now going to be his hobby.
super
Yeah.
It's
attractive.
only a matter of time.
Oh yeah. He's a
It was weird that he wasn't modeling.
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So
Someone should have scouted him in a mall.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel like someone probably already has.
Many times.
Probably.
People just approach
He's
him.
exceptionally good looking.
Yeah. So maybe we'll be seeing him on a billboard
I remember
near
the
us
first time we
soon.
were watching a season and he came on the screen and Natalie was like, oh. I was like, oh, what?
So speaking of Bachelor model men, Tyler Cameron with his new girlfriend, Paige Lorenz. Paige, there was a little bit of speculation
Uh-huh.
because there were some recent photos of the two of them out in New York, and people were accusing her of calling the paparazzi or having these photos be really staged. And she was kind of holding her ground in the comments, I will
Okay.
say. She was very
She
much
fought back.
Yeah, she was saying quote, I would probably look better in them if I did set it up.
They looked great.
I feel calling the paparazzi fine. Right?
Well, that's
Right?
If you want
it's been done.
it's been done. Huge celebrities do it. Sometimes you make money directly from it. Sometimes
Yeah.
you just you're in the public eye a little bit more.
It's
It's all a game.
Well, that's the thing. It's funny that you said, yeah, it's definitely a thing. Real celebrities do it
Oh, definitely.
all the time. I always just find it funny because, obviously with reality TV stars becoming more, in the scene, it's just, I think it's just one of those things, whether it's Bachelor Nation or maybe, your Bravo Nation or whatever. I think they're just that much more critical of their stars, if you want to call them that, you know, in a sense, where it's just like no one would do this. No one would point it out for an actor.
I also just feel like the paparazzi has so much less power now because like celebrities have access to social media. So you're seeing inside your house, like you're seeing people in their pajamas, like you're getting the intimacy that I feel like paparazzi photos used to provide
but
for people.
They still are out there. But like I will say, like, I mean, I don't really care whether she did or didn't, but like they do look attractive in those photos.
Are they just attractive people though?
Maybe they are both very attractive people.
Like Tyler Cameron could poop and it probably look great. You know?
I guess.
Yeah.
The arm over the shoulder, while cute, is also a very challenging way to walk.
I hate it. I hate an arm over my shoulder. And
Or
I feel bad
around
about
the waist
it.
is weird too. Any sort of being held
But
while
it looks
moving.
good. But it also
sometimes-
is very hard to do. It's not a practical walk.
No.
Like sometimes when you're doing a photo shoot, the photographer will be like, do this. So like hold your arm this way. And I'm like, they're like, no, trust me, it looks good. It's like, and I feel like walking with your arm over their shoulder is one of those things that looks good, but also just feels
Bad.
Unless you're the
bad.
perfect height. I think there's a few situations where you line up really perfectly and it's
Natalie's the
it's
perfect height. She's 5'9". I'm
That's not-
6'2". No, but I like,
not for that
but I don't
necessarily.
like her shoulder is right around. I mean, it is, but it's still like weird. Like we can do it, but it's
I feel like there's just been like a few times where I've been like, wow, this is surprisingly comfortable. And it's not been like what I would expected.
anyways. Tyler and Paige, attractive people
Doing attractive stuff.
doing attractive things.
Yeah. Everything just becomes attractive automatically.
Maybe they're just too good looking for their own good. That they will always look like they staged it.
Yeah.
I have two friends like that where every time they walk towards me, I think I'm in a catalog.
Yeah.
It's just like they just have that look.
Well,
All
wish
right.
them the
Well.
best.
Well, I just got back from a 2-week road trip that included going to Europe, and I tell you what, away saved the day. Got so many compliments from our away suitcases. I'll tell you what, and also as we were running through all these airports, just rolled right with us. So easy to pack. It was amazing what we put in our away suitcases. And every time we saw someone with an away suitcase, we just kind of pointed and nod like they were part of our cool club. I've had my away suitcase for some time now. It looks brand spanking new. Natalie's got hers. It's, what more can we say? There's so much storage space. They're so durable. The 360 spinner wheels make it the smoothest roll ever. It fits perfect as your carry-on. It's a perfectly sized. It's the best luggage you could possibly get.
There's nothing more to
So
say.
wonderfully affordable. Plus, there's a 100-day free trial on everything Away makes. Take the product on the road, live with it, travel with it, even get lost with it for 100 days. And if you decide it's not for you, you can return any non-personalized item for a full refund. No periods, ifs, ands, or asterisks. I mean, shoot, people.
There's no reason not to try
do
it.
it. Start your 100-day trial and shop the entire Away lineup of travel essentials, including their best-selling suitcases and bags at awaytravel.com/VIALL. That's awaytravel.com/VIALL. Oh, Helix Sleep. I was hoping that I would be able to talk about Helix Sleep because being gone for 2 weeks, I don't know if you, I hope that every time we do an ad, you guys, you hear the sincerity in my voice, but I really want you to hear it when it comes to
There
Helix.
is something different about Helix. As someone who listens to you do a lot of ads, there's something about it.
Because when I get into my bed, I'm just like, it's good to be home.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to be home. It is the best sleep I've ever had. And we slept in some nice mattresses. We stayed in some really nice hotels in Europe. But I'll tell you what, nothing beats my Helix mattress. And it was such an affordable mattress. They have a mattress for everyone, whether you're a side sleeper or a soft sleeper, whether you like soft, medium, or firm mattresses. Helix has something for you. And you don't have to take my word for it. They are regularly voted best mattress. 2020 GQ and Wired Magazine voted them best overall mattress. They offer a 10-year warranty, 10 years. And you can sleep on 100 nights risk-free. You can sleep on 100 nights risk-free. Just go to helixsleep.com/VIALL, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that gives you the best sleep of your life. No joke. It's truly amazing. It's so good. I've had some good mattresses in my life, but nothing has beat my Helix. I am a Helix mattress sleeper for life.
For life.
Helix is offering $200 off all mattress orders And 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/VIALL. That's helixsleep.com/VIALL for up to $200 off and 2 free pillows. Let's get into the episode. Wow, it was triggering.
You know, when they announced that there were going to be 2 bachelorettes and they were like, but we're not going to pit them against each other. I naively was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know why I believed that, but they like have the lack of clear guidance for them has to be so harrowing, right? That they keep being like, what do we do? You know, like, why, this is a formatted show and they're given like no guidance.
It felt a bit forced, the drama.
Yeah, like in particular, I don't want to jump ahead too much, but you know, that group date where they were showing Rachel having the best time connecting with guy after guy, and then poor Gabby, each conversation is just a guy saying, I want to be with Rachel. But there were plenty of men there who wanted to be with Gabby. Like, that's the producers sending those guys in, guy after guy.
Yeah.
Right. And like, even though the date with Eric ultimately went well, and I'm sure we'll get into it more, it was still, she had a moment of like having some stuff really unearthed and be like felt in a big way. So I feel like she's already coming at this from like the classic Bachelorette exhaustion. And then she's like emotionally depleted from this experience. And then it was like back to back to back.
Yeah. And it's weird because like you said, like, you know, we were told we're not going to pit them against each other. But they're like covertly doing it. They're almost like pitting them against themselves, like in their own insecurities, and just by default having another lead to share the stage with. It's just something that they are doing on their own, right? Like they're not making the women compete per se, like they would have to like pit them against each other, et cetera, or having but it's just more covert.
Right. And like, so that's the plausible deniability. And also the fact that I think they're genuinely friends and they seem to, you know, be there for each other and they don't want to fight with each other. But I mean, it's that classic thing of like, you're in middle school and the guy you have a crush on likes your friend. You're not mad at your friend, but you still feel terrible.
It's still I kind of also hated, and I think this is just a product of, you know, how movies are or TV shows, but just how much the show made like rejection the horrific thing that we all act like it is, right? This idea that, oh, well, a simple like, hey, you're great, but I might be more into them. The show is all about getting rejected. It was all about Gabby and Rachel at different parts of the episode being told that I'm more into someone else. And like, how does that make you feel? And I really hated how like, you know, and I'm sure like they were constantly asked, how does that make you feel? And they were just honest. And then it was framed in a way that it was like so negative. And obviously on the show, we talk about rejection a lot and how it's way more clarity than anything. And then you're triggering your ego and things like that, where it's just like getting information about where you stand with someone should be a great thing. And yeah, it can be hard to hear. And I just hate that they made, like, think about all the people watching it who want to shoot their shot or who want to go for it. And we're constantly saying like, listen, the only thing you're risking is a little bit of rejection, but that's okay. Like, you'll get your information, you can move on, maybe something good will happen, and it's not the end of the world. And they made it seem like a little bit of clarity around like finding out who's vibing with you and who's not is the end of the world. And I personally like hated that.
In regular life, if you have a great connection with 2 people, you're like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. Like, there's 2 people I like. But on this show, it's like, oh, 16 people don't like me? Something must be wrong with me.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
Or just like hearing it three times in a row when you're expecting to like use your very limited time that you have in general to make any type of connections. This early on, there's still like, they're talked about having a record-setting number of men on a group date. Like, there's so many people and you want to make connections. And so, but instead they had these women talk to the guys that I'm assuming they knew were into the other.
Oh, definitely.
And I feel like they probably told the guys like, hey, like, you don't want to come off like a fuckboy who's like trying to play both of them. Like, I feel like they really primed the guys to bring it up and we're like, hey, this is like for you so that way you don't look like a player and set it up.
Because like Hayden and Jacob, right? Like, I agree with you, Amanda. I think they both came in there thinking, oh, and like, I'm just going to be honest. I don't want to be thought of as a fuckboy. And I think you have a bunch of guys terrified of being viewed as fuckboys. And so when they showed Gabby hanging out with like the men while Rachel was on a one-on-one date, and like Gabby was like, these guys aren't talking to me, I feel like it had a lot to do with the men also like don't know what they should be doing and are also not getting guidance. So Jacob, though, it's just like, in what world is saying, if there's no one else here, I still wouldn't pick you?
I don't know.
Like, if I'm trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, it's just like diarrhea of the mouth. But like, how did you not, like, why is that
And
necessary?
even the way they like wrapped up that conversation, he was like, let's just go back in there, have a great time.
Let's go
okay?
have a great time.
Yeah.
And
I'm like,
Did he cheers her too?
yeah, he kind of like gestured with his drink. Like he didn't really know
it
what
was
to do.
so out of touch that I gotta wonder if he was
And he
if he
literally
had a very
said-
different impression of what the expectations of that conversation
And he
were.
literally said, obviously you're smoking.
I
Shoot.
loved that every guy
Like-
that turned someone down
No,
was
it's
like, but
obviously you're
also
hot.
you're so hot. Like,
yeah,
as like a Band-Aid.
That was really not great.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like, don't worry, it's just your personality.
Oh, and then like, yeah, the hate and the rough around the edges. Also, in what again, like, maybe you got set up. I don't know. Maybe you thought you were like trying not to be a fuckboy. But in what world is calling anyone rough around the edges? I mean, like, imagine like if it was like a guy, you're just like, it's just like, I just have a better sense of humor than you. Like it's like saying something like that. It's just like, okay, I guess.
I also think the fact that it was Hayden, I felt very betrayed because he has such like kind English teacher energy. I assumed he was a teacher, and then it's like leisure executive, and it's like, oh, the leisure executive came out tonight. Because
Yeah.
it's like you think he's like the one who's like taking you after class and like giving you a book like that's not on the syllabus.
No,
You're like,
he-
hey, I think this is really going to connect with you, and then he's like, you're rough around the edges, and you're like,
He
excuse
seemed
you.
after this episode, he seemed very frat boy, boat shoes.
No
type
books
of-
were given.
Yeah, like
No book.
No books.
he wears khakis and polo shirts, and he has the things around the glasses.
And he gets so much credit for having a sweetie boy smile.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
And
like
he uses
grocery
it.
store Joe with a very different soul.
yeah.
What did you think about Rachel keeping him?
I think she can't get rid of everybody.
Right. I felt a little weird about it. But I also think that maybe it had something to do with how few people were left for her to pick from. But
Yeah. Also, like they made her get rejected.
right.
How many times? 3 or 4
3 times. Yeah.
And taking away those roses.
The taking it. Don't you
Oh
think she
my
should have been able to
God.
keep the roses and
Yes.
give them to someone else?
Absolutely,
Except
I do.
that again, like there's only so many beds. There's only so many plane tickets.
Yeah.
I also love how Avon was blown away by everything. Couldn't comprehend.
Yeah.
I love Avon.
I know he's great, but it's like every little thing is like, no way. He just got back.
Yeah.
No
Also,
way.
seeing
I'm like,
the
yeah,
guy's
way.
reaction during the rose ceremony was really kind of delightful.
It was endearing.
It was like,
I also felt like Avon had a moment that I really picked up on when it was just him and like one other person waiting outside. And then it was like him and Zach. And then another guy walks out and the two of them are like celebrating. And he's like, hey, like be respectful. And I was like, oh, like it's so hard
he
to be
seems
the
like a
one
s-
who's like, hey,
and
be
you-
quiet, guys. And
and
he
you-
did it in such a kind way.
you know that Tino and Avon, I think we can lock them in for Final Four.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Easy.
Because they also, not only you see the connection between Tino and Rachel, like when he's like, I'm here for you, like she was like,
Put a ring on my finger.
yeah, and he's also very handsome.
Oh, yeah.
He's
being skilled in construction, huge asset.
he's exceptionally
The tub,
handsome.
the freestanding tub that he could put in
Right?
their bathroom. Nothing
Yeah.
more romantic
All your
than that.
DIY projects? I mean,
But
sign
it's-
me up.
It's not a coincidence that when Avon simply said, I'm here for you, and then you saw Tino say, I'm here for you. That's the only soundbite you got. That's all you saw. You saw you heard very romantic music. And the other guys who tried to attempt to say the same thing, and it went very differently. Of course, they actually, no, I'm correcting my, Tino and Avon said it to Rachel, where the other guys
Said it to Gabby.
And that's another thing where it's just like, I was disappointed. Like no guys really shined. Like even Eric, I was really disappointed. Like, I thought he did okay when Gabby got sad, but I feel like that was a real opportunity to just
to shine, and he didn't.
To be, and he was just like, yeah, he didn't say anything.
Well, because even at the beginning, before she even left the table, not knowing that she was going to up and stand up and leave, I was like, say something, help her. And then I'm like,
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. That can be awkward or hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a first one-on-one. I mean, when I was on my first one-on-one with Andy, I still thought I was like hanging out with a celebrity. Like, it was a very weird feeling.
Do you think he should have followed her?
No. I just think, she left. She was probably gone for a good 20 minutes. He probably went in and did like an ITM. I would assume, like, for all the producers, and I'm sure, the things they say that were like, oh, they probably set him up or manipulated them. They also are there to try to make these guys look good. Like, you do get a lot of like nervous contestants who don't know what to say. So like some of the very romantic things you hear are also probably from like the producers. I mean, they love it when someone comes who's in their feelings and can say things and can speak from the heart. They would love it, but often there's a lot of people who either are too nervous or incapable of doing that, and so they might throw him a bone. And I just thought, like, he had all this time to kind of prep, a good probably 10 to 20 minutes while Gabby's off crying.
The sun went down, so it was quite a good amount of time.
To say, like, okay, she's upset. She just poured her heart out. I want to, like, make her feel good and just say, I can only imagine what that must be like. But in the little time I've met you, like, you just radiate, and just start spilling out all these compliments. Mm-hmm. Start talking about how
her.
Yeah, and like, you're so special. It's so obvious. Even the way you handled yourself with that Harper, like, there's like the Clayton of it all. Like, there's some. It would have been so easy for him to just really let Gabby know that he sees her and
build
her up, and it just fell flat. I was like watching it. I was like, no, he's gonna. Because we see a very charming guy in Eric, a very confident guy who seems pretty good at like talking to he'd be good at talking to women. So I thought, even if it was like disingenuous, I thought he would be able to like throw some game her way. But like, it was just kind of like, yeah, I think you're great. Oh, Missouri. Oh, they are saving the day when it comes to jewelry that looks super expensive.
So good. So classy.
But is not actually expensive. It's priceless, but affordable. And it looks priceless, but affordable.
And it's the perfect combination of being like having its own distinct style and looking really cool while also being pieces that you can match with so many different clothing items, jewelry items. Like, it's just really nice.
I'm always
jewelry.
complimenting Natalie jewelry. And I'm like, oh, where'd you get it? It's from Missouri. And I'm like, oh, of course. Duh. God. Missouri does find jewelry differently by celebrating every day, not just the big moments, but every moment. High quality pieces are designed for you to wear your way, whatever your taste, mood, or budget. They drop new lines and new additions, products. They drop new products all the time, featuring responsibly sourced diamonds and recycled 14-karat solid gold pieces you can sweat, shower, and sleep in.
I feel like that's the worst too, because if you get jewelry that you really like, you want to wear it a lot. And then if you forget to take it off before you get in the shower, like you randomly go swimming, then suddenly it's like, great, it's corroded, it's ruined.
It's pink.
My finger's green.
Well, not with Missouri.
Not with Missouri.
If you're looking for a sign to buy yourself the diamond or gold hoops, bracelets, or necklaces, then this is it. Make your own day and go to Missouri.com. That's MEJURI.com. Figs. Figs. It's like if you're in the medical field, you're not wearing figs. Are you even really in the medical field?
No, figs are objectively.
You're not cool.
Everyone loves figs. Everyone I've talked to that works in the business in the industry.
It's the biz.
Yeah.
Also, like I always said, like, if you want to like low key look like a doctor when you grocery shop and maybe get hit on, wear figs. They're also super comfortable. Like, I know like they're meant for like, the healthcare workers, and it's a great way to like say thank you to your healthcare workers in your family. Like, if you know a doctor or a surgical tech or a nurse, like, and if you don't know what to get them, they can never have too many nice pairs of figs. Their super popular core scrubs never go out of style or stock. Mix and match your core scrubs with each other for a quick wardrobe refresh. 100% awesome core scrubs include pants and tops and a rainbow of color options with 1 to 3 pockets for convenient access for everyday carry. They have, their technology is great. It's soft, it's comfortable, it's stylish, it's durable. Head to wearfigs.com and use code VIALL to get 50% off your first order. To get the awesome humans in your life, the scrubs that they deserve. Or, if you're someone, I know we have a lot of healthcare workers listening to this show, treat yourself with an extra 15% off. That's WEARFIGS.com, code VIALL for 15% off your first order. Again, that's wearfigs.com. Use code VIALL for 15% off your first order.
Well, something I think that can be really hard to comprehend if you grow up in a healthy environment with a family that is supportive and loving is it can be really hard to understand people who haven't had that. And it can be like really disorienting to hear that, because there's like, for Gabby to say that her mom doesn't love her, for Gabby to say that her mom's no longer a part of her life, like those are really fundamental losses. Like, all we do in psychology is talk about the importance of your connection with your primary caregiver, right? And so I think maybe for Eric, like maybe he had never heard someone say that before and not know, because what do you say, right? It's different than saying like, oh, my parent passed away, where I think maybe we have like more experience and like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, I'm sure they loved you. Like, they were probably looking down. Like, we sort of have the vocabulary to talk about that. Some people can't sit in discomfort.
That's totally true. And I don't think he's like a bad guy for not doing it. I'm just like, it was just a bummer. I thought it was a real missed opportunity for him.
And I think it speaks to that they might not be compatible.
Yeah.
Like, I think he would be perfectly compatible with a lot of people, but I think she's going to need somebody, like you said, who in those moments can build her up, who can sit with that discomfort, and who can give her more.
And just saying something like, I can only imagine what that must be like, but, like, I can't imagine, like, no one, like, I see, just say that, just empathize, like, just recognize for a moment that, like, and I don't know.
Because I feel like, and they kind of made it seem like at the end, like, oh, and then they made up and it was fine. And I was like, no, Gabby self-soothed effectively.
Right.
And then she came back and then she felt relief from having self-soothed and then they were able to enjoy themselves. It wasn't him.
I kind of hated, yes, exactly. Yes, you took the words out of my mouth and you articulated it better. But like, it was just more like, wait, because I was like, she was like giving him credit for the thing I wanted him to do, but he didn't do. And she's like, I feel seen. I'm like, but he didn't. I wanted him to make you feel seen.
I wonder, though, if she gets comfort and physical affection, right? Because, like, afterwards, she sat on his lap. Maybe that made her feel safe. Like, like he was rubbing her back. Like, he didn't show up for her, like, emotionally or with language, but he did show up for her, like, in his body and, like, in their physical connection. And maybe that soothed her.
Maybe. Yeah.
Interesting.
But I'd like to see a little bit more.
I don't think that they're a good match because of that, but I understand where they were both coming from.
Do you see anyone that might be a good match for Gabby at this point? Because I honestly thought like Eric was my front runner for that, just because he seems to have a little sass. She has some sass.
I think Nate is a great option for Gabby.
I like Nate for Gabby, but weren't you a little like concerned because she had this great date with Nate? Mm-hmm. And I get getting rejected is never fun.
Right.
But off the heels, like when you are in that world and you make a connection with someone, it's like, it feels good. Because in the back of your mind, I'm just looking for one. You're like, yeah, I have all these boyfriends or girlfriends if you're the Bachelor. But at the end of the day, I'm just trying to fall in love with one. And you know pretty quickly when you meet one of these guys or women, if you're the Bachelor, that they could be the one. So when I was watching the beginning of the episode, we saw Gabby seem so upset after like talking to these guys. I was either she's not as into Nate as I thought she might be, or we want her to be, or she's really good at playing up this insecurity. And I don't think she's playing up the insecurity, because otherwise you don't really care. You know, you have your person. I just felt like you would think that she, off the heels of this amazing date with Nate, would feel that assurance.
I don't think that, I think if you're dealing with the kind of like trauma that Gabby clearly has around rejection and abandonment,
Sure.
I don't think having one good date with someone is going to protect you from being upset the next day.
That's true.
Well, I also think the fact that Nate is a dad is like something that Gabby expressed a lot of hesitancy around. Just
Right.
like, I don't know if I'm ready to be a mom. Like that's a different commitment for a relationship. I do think Jason, though, he's been kind of like he's investment banker from Santa Monica.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen him. Like,
No, but
I don't even know who
they
you're
talked
talking
about
about.
him.
no, they talked about him, and I clocked him this episode for sure, and he's very handsome, and like, but like I said last week, I think he's too quiet for his own good, and I think there's a world in which either of them might be attracted. They both pointed out that they were attracted to him, but like when he was on that very small group date last week, he like, you saw the beginning of both those conversations, and they like cut away from it, and it's because there must not have been much there. And then you have this episode, he's on these dates, once again don't see any real interactions, and so we're all just like waiting for what is like this attractive guy that like on paper you think one of them might be into, and it's just not resonating. And I will be shocked if Jason's still here in a couple weeks. Not Nate. Nate's Final Four for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that with the Nate of it all, she's got to just come to terms with if she's ready to date someone with a kid. And like that's like something we can't answer or predict because it's such a personal decision.
Yeah.
And I don't know if she's there.
I suspect they'll make that they'll ram that storyline
big
down
plot
our
line.
throats.
Yeah, it
Go
does kind of
hometown.
feel like somehow Rachel ended up with all of the kind of like classic romantics that you see on the season, like Zach on their one-on-one. Like he really had the energy of like the Bachelorette.
Oh my God, they were like
heartthrob.
crying.
Tyler again, Bachelorette heartthrob, and then like Ava, like all of these guys who just seem very like romantic in the way that the people who tend to go far in the show like look like for me.
I don't like calling it romantic. I would say more traditional,
Yeah, it's like something about that.
because like you can be romantic all different ways. But yeah, like
In a way that like reads on TV very specifically, you know?
like
Like
you know,
like storybook romance as opposed to like a more raw like humor.
like what Hayden would call rough around the edges, I might call like more charismatic or spontaneous, where Rachel might be more like traditional and in her feelings, and, you know, like, but like, yeah, I think you're, you know, like, you know, I'm not, but like personality wise, Gabby's way more like my speed personality wise, like, you know, and I just think this show often casts your very, you know, kind of traditional, you know, people. And like, I think also on this show, there is this inherent fear of how you're going to be perceived. And so I can see them being drawn to someone who they find to just play the more demure role. Rather, Gabby is like, kind of, she owns like her spunkiness. I love how she says how like, I mean, she plays it up more than I think she needs to by saying she's like not, how did she describe herself? Like the imperfect
Bachelorette. She also said Rachel was easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like she's selling herself way too short, but like, I think, you know, listen, like in that world, I always felt like the outlier. You get the Ben Higgins. It's just like, just because I like, you know, was not so buttoned up, and like, but also like in that world, like compared to that world, I'm a pretty like straight-laced guy,
Standard guy. Yeah.
But like in Bachelor world, it's like edgy bad boy. It was just like, okay. And I think Gabby's feeling that kind of judgment from that bubble.
Yeah, and I mean, also our perceptions of ourselves are so different than how other people perceive us. So like, who knows? She might have just had this narrative about herself that she is really difficult and that she is someone that is harder to love. And I think it's very obvious where that comes from for her, even though I'm sure the people around her don't feel that way. And so sometimes the journey is making the way you feel about yourself be more aligned with the way everyone else already sees you, instead of actually having to change.
Yeah.
Totally.
What happened to Mario?
No
Right?
idea.
Zero camera time.
Where is he?
I think he made a real mistake by flirting with Rachel like that. I
The-
wasn't.
That's what I said.
I wasn't
just-
into
I
that.
just feel like you get the first impression rose. I know it's early, but like I feel like as stupid as it sounds, in that world, it's kind of a big deal. And to be gifted that first impression rose and still act like you're unsure of what direction you want to go was kind of a miss for Mario.
Would you, if this was your season and you looked back and saw that the person you ended up with for the first few episodes was like wavering between both leads, would that bother you?
I mean, it's hard because I can't imagine, like, so I have to visualize being like the Bachelor with Ben or something, right?
Right.
No, I don't. I really don't think so.
It would bother me.
Listen, I like, to your point, like there's your something happens, you feel like a sense of rejection, like there's that initial feeling we feel that just like is an inherent feeling. And then there's the kind of the mature level head, just like, you kind of talk to yourself and be like, you know what, like I'm gonna try to empathize and put myself in their shoes, what it's like. If I felt it, I guess it's all to say, if I liked the person and I felt a connection, I'd get over it.
Yeah.
Like, and I definitely wouldn't like, get over it and then bring it up later in the relationship.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't use it as might I wish they would have not early on, I guess. But I think more realistically, I think to your point, if it's someone you were like kind of on the, like, depending on how Gabby made her decision, give the first impression rose. Like a lot of, especially the Bachelorettes, give it to what seems to be their clear front runner of the night. So many of these guys have ended up winning. If Tino wins, I'll if he doesn't win, I'll be shocked, But Gabby might, like, I could picture Gabby being like, what, I don't want to give it to my favorite. I don't want to out that person. That, like I had a strong connection with Rachel, but I probably, like, night one still, like, Vanessa was probably my front runner night one, but I was just like, I was looking for who else besides my front runner am I really connecting with, right? So Gabby might have done that, and then she sees like Mario doing that and thinking, I was on the fence about you and you're doing this bullshit. Like, I gave you my first impression rose, and that wouldn't surprise me. I could, and if that was the case, I could see me being quickly turned off.
Yeah.
And kind of feeling like I wasted this first impression rose on you. I could see that for sure.
I think for me it would really matter how similar I felt I was to the other lead. So if I felt like I had a completely different personality than the other lead, then it would be really strange to me. Whereas if I felt very similar to the other lead, then it wouldn't bother me as much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. The argument is like it's so early on they don't know, but I'm more in agreement with you because I'm like Gabby and Rachel are so different in so many ways. I would think that if I were on their season, I would like know, like just I'd be like, okay, well, I just I don't know if I'm going to be like if it's going to work out with either of them, but like I know that who's more.
Yeah, your vibe.
My vibe, you know, and I think it must be clear to most of these guys early on. So I don't know.
Well, it wasn't for Meatball, at least not till the end. And then he made a strong choice. It was interesting to me that, first of all, Meatball, hilarious in general, but that he was like, yeah, I don't know. And then I could go with either one. And then when Rachel offered him a rose, he was like, no, I'm suddenly Team Gabby. Wasn't that weird?
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought the whole
what
rose
changed?
ceremony was super.
And then them having to go back into
my
the
God.
line.
Oh
like
my
it was
God.
Probably nothing changed. It's just what we saw.
And I wonder
Yeah.
how much of it was strategy on their part versus connection, because you got to know that Rachel has these
guys?
because Rachel has these really strong frontrunners like Zach and Tino, and I would argue Tyler. Like she's got and Avon, like she's got some ringers. Versus like Gabby, it probably seems a little bit more like, okay, yes, Nate is clearly like in the lead, but there's a little bit more like seats at the table.
Well, I mean, like Nate, Eric, and
I guess Mario just because he got the first impression rose.
And like I guess we've been seeing them say Johnny is hot.
Spencer's in Gabby's camp, right?
Mhm.
Spencer's he's a looker.
Yeah, he is.
I gotta say, you thought Tyler was an ex-Bachelor, Amanda, because he has Ben Higgins vibe. After this episode, I could not think you were more off.
Why? Because his
His-
rejection went first though. And it was done
There's
and
nothing to do
framed
with-
in the most kind way.
It has nothing to do with that. I think just his energy and I just don't see lead material.
Maybe not.
Yeah. I'll probably, his mom's going to yell at me now.
I like him a lot. And I also love
You like Tyler?
I do.
He just looks like such a sweetie.
He's such a, and I have a history of dating boys from New Jersey, but I also just think it's very adorable what he does for a living. I think he's very sweet. I think that's an example of how you handle letting someone down well, right? Like his conversation with Gabby was like flawless, I thought.
Yeah.
He didn't unnecessarily hurt her. He didn't give her any reason other than I just feel a stronger connection with Rachel. He didn't like say anything about it, and it's because of this blank about you. Like I thought he handled that really well.
I mean, compared to the other guys,
Yeah.
it was
There was
good.
a low bar though.
I thought it was fine. I wasn't like, oh, that's a, I also thought it was weird that was like they sat down. It was like the first thing they did.
But isn't that, I would think, I would appreciate that. I don't want to have like a 5 minutes of getting to know your family only for you to then say you prefer Rachel,
Yeah.
True.
Oof.
Time is
right? Time's of
Precious.
the essence.
I guess. So it's just the don't tell them that they're around the edges or
Right. Like
Yeah.
you don't need to say anything other than I feel really connected to Rachel. That's it. Right?
yeah. Don't say if you were the only one here, I would leave. Yeah.
that was unbelievable. That
And
was-
you could tell, like, as Jacob was saying that he really thought that they were like having a cool, like,
Oh my
friend
gosh, yeah.
moment. That Gabby must think this was like interesting too.
I
Yeah.
would be curious how that whole conversation actually went, but like just the fact that Gabby was clearly upset, you knew that regardless of how it was cut, that clearly that was the tone in which that was the lasting impression that he left with Gabby. Because it really, like,
She did a good job though of taking those conversations
for-
in stride.
oh, for sure.
Like, I don't know, like if you're not that emotionally intelligent, maybe Jacob thought that like she truly didn't care.
I don't think he was. I don't think he had any. It's clear to me that they like Hayden and Jacob didn't think how like regardless, even if you think she probably doesn't like me, I'm just letting him know. I don't know, but they didn't go in there with any thought of I'm about to essentially reject someone, and I should be like mindful of how they might receive it and be careful because like it might sting as
Right.
opposed to pretending that it's not a big deal and they're gonna be best pals. Like
Yeah.
there was no thought of empathy at all.
Well, I wonder if it gets to like what you said when you were on your first one-on-one with Andy, where she felt like a celebrity. Like maybe, it's the way that people like leave mean comments in your YouTube video thinking that you're not a real person who
Sure.
reads them. Like maybe they think that they're like untouchable because they're still the Bachelorettes.
There could be that.
And the rough around the edges thing to me is incredibly revealing of who Hayden is as a person.
Yes.
And that he wants
and
his women.
Yeah, go ahead.
He
Yeah.
wants women to behave a certain way.
Yes.
And if women don't behave a certain way, then they are not good enough for him.
It's also
yeah, his
so
his expectations of how he thinks the women he dates should act.
Exactly.
And I guess it goes along with what you were saying earlier of like you became the bad boy because in this bubble it's so like perfect in every regard. But I'm like, I don't even think Gabby's that rough around the edges. That's
Exactly.
all if all people can talk
She's
about
got a
is
little spunk.
exactly.
She
and they're
makes
like,
jokes.
Yeah,
makes jokes.
She makes
goofy.
jokes.
They're like, oh,
Yeah.
crazy lady.
But I'm like, she's been nothing but composed.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, she could
She
go
might have
to
swore
a
or
debutante
something.
ball right now and
Right.
probably pass the entire thing.
Well, that's
like,
what I'm saying. It's so
Yeah.
hyperbolic as I often say,
Yeah.
but it's highly like, yeah, it's silly.
But I think it taps into what she fears about herself.
Oh, totally.
And that's what's so upsetting,
Mhm.
It's
It's not an accident.
Yeah, it's
They-
like Hayden wants a +1, not a partner.
Yeah, it was a real bad episode for Hayden.
That's why I felt I get why Rachel kept him, but I don't think I would have. I think that comment in itself would have been a really, really big red flag for me. Like I almost thought when Gabby told Rachel as they were leaving the group date that Rachel was going to go back and
Yes.
dump them both right then.
I believe she probably would have. I think Gabby, it was pretty clear that she didn't want
She didn't want that,
And
yeah.
then by the time the rose ceremony happened, my guess is if it was 100% her choice, she probably would have
Gotten rid of him.
You know, he's like we want drama. We want people to root against. It wouldn't shock me if we see Hayden step in it a few more times before he's unceremoniously sent home, even if it's just like one more episode to like get some drama out of Hayden. And like, you know, like you always have to like, once something happens, you have to wait for it to like make its way around the house and let the rumor, like, you know, when you get like all the guys the next day, like, what happened? You know, why did the energy change? And like someone's like, well, you know, Hayden fucked up, you know, something like that. And then like that's where how you get the conversation. So like even like I think Rachel is taking one for the team is my guess, to allow Hayden to fuck up is my guess.
Do you think she also just wanted a guarantee too? After being rejected 3 times, like she's heard.
I think that's what people will say.
Okay,
but I'm guessing she doesn't give a shit about him at all. Okay. And again, I think it's like I don't doubt these women were feeling rejected. I also don't think that they truly like were losing sleep over it. I've seen it before where it's just like when you're on these dates, it's kind of like you're at work in a sense, and you feel the pressure of the bubble, and then you leave it, and there's like a decompression, and maybe you're just like talking about life back at home, and so like you kind of escape. So
kind of reset overnight.
Maybe they are. I don't really know.
Right.
But like it also wouldn't surprise me if maybe the show is playing it up a little bit more than is happening in reality, because they are. That's what they do.
I thought it was really interesting when Rachel said that thing about when she found out she was going to be one of the bachelorettes and her parents said, can you handle this emotionally? And she said, yeah. And now she was questioning if she could handle it emotionally. And that to me, just like, I felt that was such a relatable moment about like so many things in life where you're like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then it's happening. And you're like, oh no, can I not do this?
Oh, I mean, it's a very, like being the lead is, I mean, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done, both physically and emotionally. And I think right now it's incredibly hard on both of them, to your point.
How do we feel like it's going to work now that there are 2 kind of distinct camps of guys? I mean, like, obviously they're all going to still travel together because they have to keep the bachelorettes together. But it's like, I feel like it's going to be interesting to see how they're like, I would almost rather be friends with someone from the other camp because we're not competing for the same woman, as opposed to like, I don't know.
I think that will be really interesting to see how it goes. And again, where do they get their drama now? Like, that's how I kind of always wonder how, like, I'm always asking myself, where are they going to get their drama next week? It's like,
you wake up in the middle of the night. Where will they get their drama?
No, when I'm sitting here wondering what the show. But yeah, like I'm curious about that, you know. Yeah. And so like how will that play a role? Because that's what it's all about when we're watching it. It's really all like everything. It's all based off of that.
I mean, a last minute switch, a last minute request to move.
I know. I was wondering if that's going to happen.
I think Logan is going to switch camps.
Oh, absolutely. If you were to put money on one person flipping, yeah.
I think Logan got Rachel's rose because, again, last week Rachel was feeling insecure, and we saw that being forced, and that was based off of like. This one date, Gabby got some attention, and then probably people were asking, like, Rachel, how do you feel? Like, could you, why no one likes you? And, and then so Logan makes out with both. He's just, he's clearly like playing the field. Mm-hmm. And Rachel, before Gabby could say, oh, I made out with him too, was like, oh, I kissed him. And then like you could tell Gabby was just like, well, like, he's yours then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if.
Well, she said it's not worth like stepping on Rachel's toes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think she felt that Rachel had stronger feelings for Logan than she did.
And then Gabby gave hers to Johnny on that group date. And then now they're each.
Just on paper, I mean, we don't know, but like, doesn't Logan seem like a better match for Gabby anyway?
I don't know
because she is Johnny. And look at Johnny's headshot. Johnny is just an interesting dude. They both got some wavy locks.
Yeah, but I could see them being more like, Logan, he is very kind of like animate. He's less
Yeah.
seems less traditional, and like I could see Logan. He's kind of jokester energy, maybe connecting with Gabby, who's also like, you know.
But I don't find Rachel to be so traditional, I guess. Like, you know, she's like a pilot. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
And
I just mean like, you know, the personality.
do you find, I don't know, I don't find Rachel to be like so buttoned up. I find her like she jokes and stuff. I don't know. I think
actually
we're just
find them more similar than I think people paint them out to be. Because if you watch their energy when it's just the two of them and like them living together and having these conversations, like they both have the fire.
and like Rachel always finds Gabby's jokes funny, which says something too.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Like-
she's funny. Yeah.
Right, but like she laughs hard. Like I
Yeah.
almost wonder like would she make more jokes like that off camera too? Like if
Well, that's possible too. I mean, like, yeah, the not everyone is exactly the same on camera
Exactly.
and off
Yeah.
too.
I think part of the thing also is that I noticed is that Rachel is very generous in her reactions to like when they're talking, and also in like asking follow-up questions. And that's not to say Gabby isn't at all, but I think with Rachel sometimes there's a little bit more of this like the way she gets to know people is through this like very like soft-spoken, kind, empathetic, warm, encouraging, versus like with Gabby, she's a little bit more like, I'm throwing it out there and seeing if you pick up what I put down type thing. And so I think that's maybe also part of it, is that like to me, Rachel has come across as like, I just feel like I see her talk less than Gabby, even though that's probably not true at all. That's just like from the clips that we've gotten, my impression.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We only can respond to what we're being shown. Like, you know, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting either of them in person yet. But I just feel like if someone's going to make a switch, because I don't see the connection between Rachel and Logan all that much,
yeah.
and I think there's going to be a rejection, and that guy is going to try to stay on the show by switching camps.
And we
at least
also
once.
still have that moment between Zach and Jesse Palmer when Zach is like crying and Jesse's like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, I'll have to tell her. That was on a
The
one-on-one
one-on-one.
Rachel. We saw that in like the
Oh,
super
yeah.
tease. He's talking to Jesse and it's like, well, how are you going to, approach this, or what are we going to do?
Oh,
And he's
yeah.
like, I have to tell her.
Let's
I think that's not going to be much of anything.
it could be not. Who knows?
It could be like, I'm in love.
Yeah, exactly.
Truly.
Or it's like my dog is sick.
It felt like he got very close to saying something very intense in an ITM on the one-on-one when he was like, I'm feeling
Oh yeah.
some kind of, and like, it was like, you were going to say you're falling for her.
Oh, for sure he was. Like that date to me was like the definition of how one like can fall in love so fast
Yes.
in that world. Like go on a date, play dress up, and then watch like for a first date, and you're watching what typically happens at a wedding.
Yeah.
You
Oh my
know?
God. I was like, this is what hometowns should be. This is every single hometown should include a slideshow of baby photos and videos.
Sure, but like to do it on your first date, like I don't fault Zach for seeming like, because I'm sure he will get a little bit of flack being like, oh God, you've been one date and you're falling in love, whatever. But like that is how you get someone to like, again, like he probably, Rachel, celebrities, the Bachelorette, first date, he's been in this world for like a week, and then he's just like vibing with her, and he's like, oh my God, he's like, I think there's something there, and like when he's like, when he was like saying something, there's something real, like he very much believed that,
Yeah.
because he felt a tangible feeling, a tangible connection between the two, and that's what he was speaking on. Now, is it real love? You can sit there and debate like how much you know about someone, and et cetera, but he felt a true, tangible like connection between him and Rachel, and I suspect Zach is going to be Mr. Heartbroken at the end of this season.
I think you can almost describe it as like manufactured intimacy,
Yeah.
right? Because like if you're sitting next to somebody and you're both crying, but you're crying for different reasons, right? Because he's crying because he's seeing his mom and she's crying because she's seeing her mom. You're like, oh, we're sharing this experience, even though
Yeah.
you're crying about different
And
things.
then like, I mean, it's not that, like when they were both like, oh, my dad used to take me to the
airport.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not that unique. I mean, it's I think a lot of kids have done that, but to share that experience was like, I mean, Zach acted like both their dads like took them to Mount Everest, and they visited like the
At
exact
age
same,
8.
and they visited the exact same spot.
It's like we were on the same tour and we didn't
like,
know it.
Rachel carved an R in a piece of wood, and Zach saw that piece of wood, and like that was the R, that was you. Oh my god, like that's how Zach acted. But like I totally get why he acted that way, because it is like, listen, like I know we talked a lot about like the producers of this episode, but like they are making a TV show. They have to manufacture things. Like they are trying to get people to fall in love in 8 weeks, and that's kind of how you do it. It's a social experiment.
And I believe people can fall in love that quickly. Like, I mean, I think I have never felt like, oh, you can't possibly love somebody that you've met, that you know, for this short amount of time. Like, I think you totally can. I think it's just like the durability is what's in question.
I mean, like I've never like denied the feelings I've spoken on that show. Mm-hmm. But like now that I'm out of that world, I've reassessed what those feelings were. You know what I'm saying? And the legitimacy of those feelings. But they were real. I felt them. You know, I didn't feel like I was saying them because I was on a TV show. I didn't feel disingenuous. But now that I left the show and I realized how much I didn't know about either of them and got to know them, I realized that I was responding to a feeling I was feeling. Now, I wouldn't call that love today, but you know what I'm saying? I don't take back what I said. So, you know, so it's
why wouldn't you call it love today?
Because I personally look at love as knowing someone, and I think love is having a sense of clarity and safety with someone. You never feel safe in that world. You never really know how someone's feeling about you. And to me, to say I'm in love with you and we are in love with each other is to speak on that as knowing how someone feels about you, having that feeling, knowing some of their things that irritate you about them, and you still like you don't know any of those things in that world. You just know all the good stuff, and what you don't know, you fill in your mind with even more good stuff.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, I'll never take it back. You know, I'll never say like, oh, I wasn't really, but like I reassess it differently now. And to your point, it just doesn't have the what was the word that
durability.
You durability.
Yeah.
Like we've seen it so easily break down, and I don't think any of these, you know, when people are getting engaged on The Bachelor and you see that love, it's all very real.
Yeah.
You know, they believe it. I think there's, you know, for the people getting actually engaged, I don't think people are acting, you know.
I don't either. Like viewing love as not just like a feeling you have towards someone, but something that you build together.
Yeah.
That it has to come from both sides.
That's how I feel. I mean, people describe love very differently, and I think we could do a whole series on it. But for me, yeah, you know, because you know, people often will say like when I say. You'll hear it. You'll hear it again, I'm sure, this season. That's like one of my favorite things about The Bachelor. People will say like, when I say I love you, I only want to say it like one more time, or I only want like they will set all these like crazy expectations on themselves in the word, and yet still say it with so little information. And like we've all, you know, but because you want it to feel important, and that desire to want these actions and words that people are communicating, or that I say, like, yeah, and then maybe it's a product of being on that show and saying it so quickly and falling in love so quickly that now outside of it, like I hold a little bit more, not more weight, but I have a little more expectations of myself of what it will take for me to feel that feeling. And if I feel a connection with someone, I personally no longer describe it as love. I might describe it as like a strong intimacy or an infatuation and like something there. But then I try to build on that, and I try to get into like feeling like, what do I have to really know that connection? And again, feeling safe that, you know, they feel the same about me, because I feel like love needs to be reciprocated in order to really have it with someone.
Yeah, I guess there's sometimes this feeling of like I wasted love, right? Like, like I've loved too many people, so therefore it couldn't have all been love. But
oh yeah, I definitely don't feel that
I don't
way.
like that. Like,
no.
you know, like I think that like there's an unlimited capacity for love, and there's so many different ways to love people.
Totally.
And
but I think that's like traditional dating society or the show and even the show is rooted in very old school dating methods.
Right.
And like we're told that like, and that's why, that's why nowadays I think people are one of the reasons people struggle so much with dating is this abundance of choices and these failed relationships and this self-judgment of it not working out and feeling like, they've wasted this opportunity or well, they have to get the next one right because I can't,
Yes.
I don't want to like have another, like, I don't want to be that person, because I have 3 exes. What does that say about me? Like, you tried? I don't know. Like,
Yeah, you kept putting yourself out there, and you're really brave.
But we have a way of shaming a lot of people for trying to find love, and you see it obviously on the show. But yeah, I do think Zach will be Mr. Heartbroken with Rachel.
So you think she's not as into him as he is?
I think
into
he
her?
has strong runner-up energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't
And maybe
wait for Tino to propose.
I think top 4 for sure. Like it's Tino. Like we already know it's Tino, right?
They are perfect. I love them.
They are perfect. There are 2 hot people who like seem really into each other, but yeah, sure, they're
I love
perfect.
love.
He's barely getting any screen time.
Oh,
He's getting enough.
that's because he's gonna win.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's got just enough. He's got just enough to remind us that he's there.
Could be a runner-up or maybe third.
I love
I think there's
Avon.
more to Avon that we will
For
explore.
sure. Listen, I think I think this episode was very telling about like I felt last week when we were like picking top 4s. I was really
Shot in the dark.
I don't
No clue.
But now I feel like I have a very different like once they separated, I feel like I have a very different like confidence level and who that top 4 is going to be, especially for Rachel. And like like Tino for sure. I think right now, I mean it's still way early, but like I think you have that, and Zach is a little younger, so I can see him falling really hard. I don't know what his dating experience is or like his, how many like serious relationships or heartbreak he's dealt with, but like it would track, if he's one of the younger guys who falls really hard and really believes it. And Rachel likes him, but like it's not Tino, And then I picture Avon being a guy who she really likes and he really likes her, but it's like the Jason Tartick with Becca relationship. I don't know if you remember that. It was like, it was good, but it was never Blake and it was never Garrett, It was just like a nice, these 2 people like each other. They look good together. When I see them on a date, I buy it. But like then you see them talk one of the other people, you're like, yeah, but it's not the same. That's how I kind of see Avon with Rachel.
Got it.
That's interesting. Would you put money on it? Those 3?
For top 4, yes, I'd put money on it.
How much?
What do you want to bet? $20?
Okay, great.
Sure. $1. We'll bet $1.
Oh, it's not that confident.
Sure, we'll bet $20.
Who are we thinking for Gabby's?
Do you disagree?
I don't know if I disagree, but I will say that I think that, life's wild and I don't feel comfortable making such sturdy claims.
Okay.
You've
been wrong before.
I also think that there is a possibility it is Zach. I feel open to
Yeah,
that.
Interesting.
I agree.
I think he's very stable. I think there's something about like their dynamic that feels like in the chaos of what is filming this show, she might feel very safe with him. But I think it'll probably also depend on like her emotional journey and how much safety matters.
I also think when they had the photo shoot with the very sparse crowd of paparazzi.
The 4 in a row.
Who didn't even know how to hold the cameras.
It just is so funny because they made the sound effects really popped off at the beginning and then you like cut to and it's like 4 photographers.
Yeah.
But I thought the way Zach was behaving where he was like very quick to like do the ta-da at Rachel gesture. And I think Rachel is someone who like really values not having to ask for attention, but having it like
that's a
be
good
given to
observation.
her.
Yeah.
He like Googled Justin Hartley on the red carpet and was like, I will do it all. Don't worry.
Yeah, I thought he would like, well, compare him to Eric. I thought he was way more like focused on like really making his date feel special.
He was locked in.
Yeah.
And I think he has more personality than we're seeing because even just like right on that red carpet, he was silly and playful and
he has like a kind of in a good way, like a kind of fun, dorky, playful energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like he looks like a football player. Like, you know, like I think he has a nice blend of those things.
I could be wrong, but I feel like his future is Heartbreak City.
Oh no.
What are we thinking for Gabby?
I mean, I'm going off of very little information, but it's fun to make these predictions. Gabby, I mean, we've only seen, I think Nate and Eric was the only connection we've seen. With Eric, you know, it's like, I don't know if it's really strong. You know, it's kind of like, but going back to Michelle's season, like Nate, like I'm backtracking, but like Rachel and Tino, like you just saw like Tino's is very much her type. It's so hard in that world once you like catch eyes for someone to challenge yourself to like consider like to get out of your comfort zone. It's really hard to do because you have so little information. And so I just, but with Gabby, who else? I mean, yeah, I think it's more to be seen. I'd like to see Gabby and Spencer. I'd like to see more of them.
Because Spencer was the one who on night one came in with the chair and was like, I know, standing on heels.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that was really high value.
And Gabby even said about Spencer.
I hope.
Yeah, well, like that he was her type, or that
she was like, I hope Rachel's
found him attractive. Yeah.
Gabby could be playing it like again, like close to the vest. I feel like Mario got the first impression rose for different reasons than Tino. And I don't know if like Mario was like out of the limo like Gabby's front runner. And I feel like
But they kissed.
No, I get it. But
Not well.
I could yeah, I'm just guessing here. And I wonder if like, maybe it could be a Spencer or an Eric, someone was like her and she just chose to like say, I want to see who else impresses me because I don't want to like give too much attention to my favorite. That's entirely possible.
Is there something to not wanting to give the person you want to go to the first one-on-one date with the first impression rose because you can't do that?
Well, Greg did on Katie's season, which was rare.
Right, that's pretty rare.
Greg get the first. I thought
the
Connor got
order
the
in
first
which
impression
people
rose.
go on dates is not something the leads would be aware of or thinking about, and the order is irrelevant in the first 5 weeks because no one gets two one-on-ones in the first 5 weeks, and they do like ideally if they can to match dates that fit the people on the dates.
Right.
It's not always the case, but the order is not something the leads care too much about. So, yeah, I think it just if that's what Gabby did, it was just a simple like her, like again, it just depends on Gabby's personality. Like I deliberately didn't give Vanessa a group date rose because I thought it would be funny to show how group date roses don't matter.
That was a little joke
Who
you were
are
playing on
you?
everybody.
Yeah,
Nick in the corner being like, "Ooh."
No, it was just like I also knew that like the women knew that I was very into Vanessa, and I knew that Vanessa, like I knew she was confident in my feelings for her, and so yeah, and I was like, I don't need to give her a group date rose.
So was your whole season everyone just knew it was Vanessa from day one, including all the other women?
I think I think after like week 4 or 5, a lot of people suspected it. I mean, in my experience talking to people on the show, that's usually, and also like revisionist history too. Like you go back and watch, for the people who watch my season, you go back and watch if you're one of the other women, and then you will see my one-on-one with Vanessa, and I choked up, and that haul was all because like I was so nervous about not connecting with anyone. I was really emotional that I had such a good date with her, and I didn't sleep all night before, and that probably added to it. And so you go back and watch that, and you go, oh yeah, you didn't cry when you went on a date with me. But so yeah, I think women are very intuitive. I think you see like. You have like the leads are always being told to be careful with their front runners because you just kind of naturally, like on a group dates, you you feel safe and connected with them, and you kind of are drawn to them, and you have to try not to. It's easy to flirt with them. It's just a natural rapport, and you don't have that natural rapport with most of these people you're with are just essentially strangers. So it's not hard. I think the leads, if they lock into it with frontrunners, have to put a lot of energy in trying to make it not obvious. And I think it's easier said than done. And I think a lot of cases people pick up on it pretty early. And again, it's not always the case. And I think in most cases, they're not really speaking it out loud. I think it's an internal thing. And then when you have conversations like after the show, people will be like, oh yeah, I kind of knew. I suspected. It was pretty obvious. I think when it's filming, you're not seeing that. You're not hearing them say that. They're trying to like focus on their feelings, and they're trying to buy in, and they'll tell themselves, oh no, we have a connection. And so that way when they leave, they'll be like, and some more than others. But I think afterwards you reassess and you see it a little bit more clear.
Wow, this is blowing my mind. Yeah, I think, but I also think that maybe you're someone who doesn't doubt themselves that much, right? So I can imagine for some people who maybe doubt their like picker, like even if you're really drawn to somebody, you might be like, but I've picked wrong in the past. Should I challenge myself to really open up to people who aren't the most obvious person or most obvious choice for me in the room?
Maybe, but we have, how many seasons of The Bachelorettes picking their first impression rose?
Yeah, like 6 or at least.
But they at least have seemed open to number like 2 and 3. Like it seems like it is like a genuine.
I feel like we watched that with JoJo's season 2 because she knew Jordan was her type. And she's like, I've been, burned in the past by people like him, the athletic, whatever.
I've heard, like JoJo was one of the more torn with her top 2. I think, now that she feels very differently about that. But in the moment, I think Becca was really into Blake. I think that was a real connection. I think sometimes the lead has 2 really strong connections, sometimes this one, rarely 3. But not always the case, but I think that's the norm.
What do you think are the ratios of people having sex in fantasy suites? Like, you know what I mean? Like if like it's one, but then you're spending the night with 3 people, like are people like just like, well, it's my last go of it?
I think there's some of that.
Yeah.
I think other people, it's different. Like for me, I felt sexualized by the show from the times I was on it, and I already knew that if I had a connection, if I thought I knew I was going to pick someone, I was only going to sleep with that one person. Like it was a decision I made for myself before the show started, and I stuck to that. Other people I know were kind of like, yeah, it's my last time. Last season, you had Clayton, who was like, I don't know, I'm the Bachelor. Isn't this what the Bachelor does?
Right.
And he kind of took that approach. And I said, I think it's different for everyone. I think, are they more, some people are more conservative with, sleeping with people. Some people are more progressive with it. And I think that plays a role. And I definitely think there's been like, this is my last hurrah. I like this person. I'm probably not going to pick them, but I think they're hot and it'd be fun to have sex with. And when am I ever going to be told that I get to do something like this? And I think it happens with both the Bachelor and the Bachelorettes.
And do you think this show makes it seem like people are having way more sex than they actually are?
Absolutely.
Right? Like I feel like a lot of these fantasy suites, people don't actually sleep together, but it's implied that they did.
If you mean like when they started doing like the morning after and they're lying in bed, like a lot of those times they definitely did not have sex. Like
right?
Even on your season, we had a whole freaking montage of Raven afterward.
Right? Yeah. That wasn't me.
Like a music video, basically. It was happening.
That was one of the weirdest things.
I'm pretty sure Matt James didn't sleep with anyone, and he had a morning after, kind of seeming like you could it would, if you had to assume after watching it, you might and guess, you would have guessed that he did.
Right.
I think they're just it is a TV show, so.
Is that your first time completely like? Because I know you're like hanging out between cuts, you're hanging out, going places. Like, is that really the first time where you feel like oh, I'm off mic for sure? Or are there other moments where like you feel safe that you can like have
That's
off
the only
camera?
time you really feel safe.
Yeah.
There's other off-camera moments for sometimes, but I think for most people that's the only time you really feel.
Like they can't actually use this even if I don't know there's a mic on kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's other small moments of like you could be in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because you don't have a mic on there, but they can kind of see you. But yeah, and there's definitely when the door closes, there's like a lot of times, oh my God, like this is crazy. And there's like for the first 20 minutes, you're just like speed talking to one another, trying to like get everything out. And I think there is so much of that. Yeah. That like, I think sex is a fraction of it.
That makes sense.
But
to
for
me.
for your front runner, it's definitely like the first thing that you get to the talking afterwards. Usually, I gotta say also, I just want to point out that like as far as life coaches go, Quincy's really winning me over.
Right?
I never like the life coach is kind of easy to roll your eyes, and we had Carl before, and then
And
we
we
had
had Chris.
We had Chris.
But the mentality coach, guys,
but,
come on.
I don't want that guy's mentality.
I don't know if Quincy, like, I know we teased him for the not having sex for a year and a half and his limo exit, but like he seems like
I like him.
I like him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did not expect to after seeing life coach next to his name, but I'm really enjoying him. I think that's kind of it, right?
Yeah.
We have 3 for Gabby. I mean, I guess what? So who would be the 4th for Rachel potentially? Are you at least on board with the final 3 in no particular order that we've talked about? Tino, Avon, and
Zach.
for Rachel.
I think so. I feel good about that.
So you think Tyler is going home? I think Tyler is for sure.
I don't know if he's going. No, I don't know if he's going home. I have no idea. I don't think he's the next Bachelor.
hometowns.
I don't think he's the next Bachelor.
Okay, I don't think he's the next Bachelor, but I do think he's gonna. I think he's a sleeper.
I think he's going to be a hit on Paradise.
Ooh,
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
totally.
Very likable.
And then for Gabby, Nate.
We still have a
Spencer?
4th for Rachel.
Oh.
Not that I feel confident about.
I guess we can make it Tyler, right? Because then it's
Throw
Tyler.
your boy Quincy in there.
I'm not seeing a connection.
I
Well,
thought Gabby.
Yeah, Quincy's for Gabby.
Oh, I had no idea who he was with. We were just hyping him up, so I need him to go with someone.
I mean, by default, I guess Tyler,
Yeah.
because I don't see it with who else are our guys. I
I
don't
mean,
see
Logan,
it,
she seems
sure.
to like Logan, but we think that he might jump ship.
Yeah, but maybe not. Logan could be your top 4 if he doesn't. Like,
Yeah.
I think I think it's a weak top. I think it seems like Gabby's. We'll all know who's going home after hometowns with Rachel because I'm so confident in her top 3.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially if we're right. Like a lot can change. Like who knows?
But if we go into hometowns with those 3 being there,
I would
then
have
they're
a
top
hard.
3.
Right. I don't know. And then Gabby, shoot,
Nate,
Nate for sure.
Spencer, maybe, just because she made that comment on night 1 that he was her type.
Maybe
I think
we just haven't seen Gabby connect with a lot of the men yet.
I think
Johnny?
Jason or Johnny,
Yeah.
maybe both.
Maybe both.
Johnny, yeah, I think Johnny maybe.
He's so young.
He's the same age as Zach. I mean,
Yeah,
they
but
are young.
Zach's with Rachel. Rachel's only 26. Gabby's 31.
Oh, I see.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, what is with all these 25-year-old men?
There's not enough older men
Bachelor.
for Gabby, I feel like.
I know.
Jason
That's probably
is
with
30.
Nate.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, Eric's
Good for
nice.
him. Good for him.
Way to make it that
Yeah.
far.
Eric's
It's real tough out
29.
there.
Eric's 29.
Okay.
Jason's 30, but it's like Jason, you top 4 is yours if you want it. Just talk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be vulnerable.
Do something.
Open
Talk-
up a little
open
bit.
up a little bit. Like talk about a dog that made you sad once. Anything. Just try. And I feel like top 4 is yours.
Eric? Is Eric going to the top 4?
I hope Eric doesn't self-eliminate.
Oh.
Yeah, I
have a little fear about that.
he's got an edge. It doesn't take much in this world, as we know. Like he's got a confidence in him that can easily be shown as cockiness, and he has a little snark to him too. Like it doesn't take much. So I agree that like I could see him being I think now that we have it separated and we have 2 bachelorettes, it's really like when they separate, you're like, wow, it really seems like they have really less options. Like it feel, you know what I'm saying? Like
I can see Eric feeling like he's not the right guy for Gabby, like that he isn't, like that, or that like that she needs someone that's more emotional than him.
Yeah, maybe. And they kind of slightly tease that on their date.
Yeah, and that like once it gets real, he might be like, oh no, I have to do emotional care for another person instead of being on this TV show.
Maybe.
I don't know, but I don't know. I don't know enough about Eric.
We just don't know enough about Gabby and who she's into. It's been we haven't seen it as much, and I think Gabby is playing it closer to the vest than Rachel.
You think that she has all these secret plans?
It's not secret plans. I think it's real simple. Like where Gabby was probably like, I'm not gonna do this. I just think she might be, or they're not showing it as much. I just think she might be a little more reserved in how she, and maybe it's coming from self-doubt. I don't know where it's coming from, but I think some people are more like, you see it, you go for it, you say it, you name it, and other people are more like, I don't know, we'll see. And then it also might be what's being shown.
Yeah.
So everyone's different. Allison, thank you so much for coming. Lovely breaking it down with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
Let people know where they can follow you. Again, remind them where they can buy your book.
Yeah, so my book is called Overthinking About You, Navigating Romantic Relationships When You Have OCD, Anxiety, and or Depression. And available anywhere books are sold. I also have a weekly podcast called Just Between Us. And then on socials, I'm at Allison Raskin. And then my mental health account is at Emotional Support Lady.
Awesome. Well, check it out. All great things that Allison is doing. Don't forget to send in your questions at AskNick@castme.com. Cast with a K for all things Ask Nick, texting office hours, all that fun stuff. We are back tomorrow with the wonderful Haley Orentia talking about, we got the Emrata cheating scandal. We'll talk a lot about cheating tomorrow.
Yes.
The reactions to that cheating scandal, not surprising, but also disappointing, I suppose. Also, what else we got on the docket, Amanda?
Victoria Beckham did karaoke to one of her songs, which I think is so fun. We've got the rejection challenge. I'll talk about what that is. A lot of cheating statistics. We can talk about J-Lo and Ben Affleck on their continued vacation.
Took a nap. Everyone's
freaking out about it. The pink sauce TikTok situation, a condiment that angered America.
Okay. Well, a lot to discuss. We'll get into it all. We'll see you back tomorrow. Allison, thank you once again. You are awesome. Have a great day, guys. Hey guys, thanks for watching, but before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos, like our Mondays Ask Nick, especially if you're looking for some relationship stories and relationship advice, as well as our Wednesday interviews with your favorite celebrities and experts. See you next time.